The Haganah not only committed terrorism against British forces in Palestine, but also bombed Jewish sites in Iraq and elsewhere in the Middle East, making it look like Arabs did it, to increase Jewish immigration to Palestine. Naim Giladi and many other Israelis write about this. I bring this up because when Frank Lowy was young, he was framing Arabs for political benefit, to increase Jewish immigration to Palestine. Decades later, he purchases the lease for the World Trade Center and frames Arabs for political benefit. After 9/11, what happened? The United States began bombing Israel's enemies in the Middle East. Larry Silverstein, who also purchased the lease to the World Trade Center, admitted in Israel that he began designing a new World Trade Center in 2000, while the buildings were still standing.
And so, next thing you know, we've got the designs of a building. And the first design meeting was in April of 2000. And construction began shortly thereafter in 2002. But we ran into a problem. We couldn't collect the insurance because the insurance companies didn't want to pay. There were 22 insurance companies defending 22 insurers who didn't want to pay their obligations under the policies. And so they took me to court. And I had to beat them in court, the lower court, and then had to take an appeal and win in the upper court. So they owed me $4.5 billion. A new governor was just elected. Elliot Spitzer, an old friend who I knew well. And I said, Elliot, if you don't help me, I'll never collect from the insurance companies. And guess what? He listened, and he said, you know what? You're entitled. I'm going to get you the money. And in 6 months, he got me the $4.5 billion. The insurance companies didn't like me, but at least I got the money. I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
I see what's happening down there. It's a mess. And the developer is actually a friend of mine, but he didn't want to build this building either. If you look back at the records, I mean, when it was first foisted upon him, Larry Silverstein is a great guy. He's a good guy. He's a friend of mine.
Trump's good friend, Israeli billionaire Larry Silverstein, admitted that he began designing a new World Trade Center in 2000. Also, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu wrote in 1995 that militant Islam would bring down the World Trade Center. Interesting. Silverstein and Netanyahu are actually good friends as well. Silverstein admitted that Netanyahu would call him every Sunday. We heard Silverstein bragging about making $4.5 billion from insurance, so 9/11 was good for him. Was 9/11 good for Netanyahu?
Benjamin Netanyahu has publicly said the September 11th attacks have been good for Israel. Netanyahu said, quote, "We're benefiting from one thing, and that is the attack on the Twin Towers and Pentagon and the American struggle in Iraq."
Netanyahu said that 9/11 was good for Israel,